was doing some steaming here. I always laugh about people with their ARs. They're constantly fiddling around with them. Changing this, changing that, swapping this, Well, I shouldn't laugh at it because I tend to do that with these 500 single-cylinder Yamahas. And I was looking through some of my stuff, and I've got a mix of Volkswagen stuff and Yamaha stuff all piled together. And sorting through that, I was finding a lot of this Yamaha stuff that I really was tempted to put together another motor. Then I got to looking. There are slight differences between the XT and the SR. The XT has got lighter flywheels. The SR, the street version, they made heavy flywheels, make it idle smoother and just pull smoother, for street use. And they put bigger intake valve and bigger cooling fins on the head than what the XT has. So I get to looking, and the only one that I have that actually has the proper motor in it that is for that frame is the street one that I drive. That's never been changed. But my screwing around bike, I come to find out that's not the right motor in that. That actually, it's an SR, but it has the motor out of my XT is in that frame. I don't remember when I switched this, but at some time I did. And I know that's got a hot cam in that motor. Which is fine for screwing around, but not good for on the street. And then I go to find out that the motor that is in the XT is a motor that I had bought bits and pieces on eBay and put together in a whole different motor. And I had put that in that XT frame to make a stock, regular lower performance motor for trail riding. It works better that way. But that hopped up motor that's in my SR frame really belongs in that XT. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to pull them two apart, and get the original motor back in the XT frame, the motor that belongs to it. But I will take out that hot cam, and that sort of thing, and kind of detune it, because it's not fun riding a heavy trail bike, with a lot of power or a power band, because the cam that's in there is a track cam that has a power band almost like what a two-stroke does. It pulls fine down low, but then all of a sudden it hits that one spot and she just takes off like crazy, which is no good riding on trails. But it's fun to play around with. That's why I have it in that SR frame. But I have to swap that back again and detune that motor. But then I'm thinking, okay, I've got a whole other complete set of cases, and I've got another set of cases. Actually, I've got another set of cases on the shelf that belong in that SR frame. So my thought is, okay, take that motor and get it back in there. But what I've always wanted to do, there's a company, or at least one company, that will take your crankshaft, and I've got like 3 or 4 extra whole cranksets, but they'll take the heavy SR crankshaft, though they can do it with the XT one, but they'll take the SR one and move the crank pin out. Then, so you get a stroker out of it, but then you got to put in a shorter connecting rod. And there's a special piston you have to put in that the pin is moved up a little higher. It's a hell of a combination of stuff you have to do, but you end up with a 650cc out of a 500. And then you throw that track cam in there, and you've got a wild piece of machinery. You know, for a 300-pound or less motorcycle, you're going to have a lot of power. So I've always kind of wanted to do that, so I'm thinking, oh, okay, I think I'll start working in that direction. Though I still got all kinds of other projects. So I got the LaFon I got to work on, I got the Volkswagen I got to work on. But just in digging into parts, and I find all these parts, and I start thinking, you know, I should do something with these. And then when I started looking at it, I have swapped them motors around. Okay, well, that inspires me to go at that and get that straightened out. You know, it doesn't really matter, but you know, it's the same like with these Volkswagens. You know, mine is the original motor, but that's really kind of rare. Most of the time people have swapped out the motors, if for nothing else, just to get, you know, a little more horsepower and to get a 12-volt electrical system and that sort of thing. Well, I'm not doing that on that. I'm keeping that bone stock. But I would like to go back with that XT, make that bone stock. But the other SR, my screwing around bike, that I think I want to play around with a little. But it is funny, you know, because, like I said, there's slight differences in them, but there's a lot of interchangeability in parts. There are some things that you really have to watch. Let's see. Okay, this is an aftermarket piston. And this is actually an SR piston. But you could run into trouble if you run one of the 2J2 heads that have the bigger valves. Sometimes those valve pockets aren't big enough. This is actually an SR one though, so this is fine. And this is an SR head. And I think this is a 10 over. But, like I say, to make that stroker, that takes a whole different rod and a whole different piston. Or if you put the short rod in, it's a combination of parts that gives you that 650. But I think, the good thing is a lot of that stuff is still available because, like I say, these are have been used for racing for a long time. For flat track racing, so there's still a lot of parts available for them and a lot of high performance parts. So you do have a lot of options with them. They didn't make a lot of changes to them. But I'm going to have to kind of keep track. Well, I know now that the motor that's in my screwing around bike belongs in my XT. So, okay, I'll tear that motor out of there and then put it back in the XT, detuned, so the numbers will be right on that, matching. And then I got that other set of cases that I'll start working on with the thought of going with the stroker. But it's kind of funny, like, in order to do that, this is just set together. The cylinder, you actually have to push the sleeve out, bore the aluminum out to put a bigger sleeve in. Well, that means you have to bore out the case ear too, where that matches up, or you'd never get the new sleeve in. But it's all doable stuff. It would make a poor street bike, but for screwing around, yeah, that works. And I've got, I think I got 3 or 4 cylinders, or 5 cylinders. And I think I've got one that's actually got a broken spigot on it. That'd be a good one to push that sleeve out of. Work with that one, because that one, I bored out to the 90 millimeter. They're 87 stock. And the max you can go is 90. With the stock sleeve, that's where you have to put that bigger sleeve in. But I think that can be done. Be a fun project. It's the kind of thing a guy should be working on in winter, but in winter it's too cold. I'm too busy then. But like I said, I got to get this Volkswagen out of the way first. Or the motor. You know, if I get the motor out, get the motor back in the Volkswagen so that the Volkswagen is movable, then I'll work from there. But I got a lot of parts laying around that I should have put to use. In fact, this is a stock cam, which looks fairly good. But, you know, when I said about the reason these bikes are so indestructible, really, you know, you look like, here's the bearing that the crankshaft rides on. Massive, huge ball. Same with the transmission. Everything is ball bearings. There's no plain bearings in this thing. Everything is balls. And it's a dry sump motor. You know, so the oil goes through it, then the oil is pumped out and goes into the frame. So you don't have that drag from the oil. They're ingenious design. I really like them, but I got so many parts I got to start playing around with them. Well, and even I've got this carburetor actually would work pretty good on the XT, because you know, for a trail bike you don't want them over carburate them. This would probably work for that. Though I think I've got the stock one on, or the advantage of the stock one is it's got an accelerator pump on it. But I do have a kit that converts these. In fact, I've got a Mikuni body laying around here that's been converted where you actually, there's a pump that bolts on the side and an injector that goes up in, well, it goes in here, that squirts gas in. So you end up with an accelerator pump. You got to run a split throttle cable, but I was running that for years on mine, on my screwing around bike. Yeah, I got a lot of parts. Well, what I did, you know, I was thinking motorcycles, so I was playing around with some stuff here, and I did finally put my quarter fairing on my SR that I run on the street. I've done that before, and when it gets buggy, it's kind of nice to have the quarter fairing on there. But I'll put that, I'll take a picture of that, and I'll put that in the thumbnail kind of thing. But really, they work very nice, and it used to be, it was a problem. The one I used before, I had made, there was these brackets that held it on. Well, then anytime you have to get in the headlight to get at the wiring, it was a nuisance. You had to take that fairing off. That's the problem with fairings. You're always taking them on and off to work on anything, really. So on this one, I made it a little different. I actually made it so it pops on. You know, and then if you have to take it off, it's rather easy. Not easy, but you know, it isn't like it's going to fly off. There's difficulty there, but you don't even need any tools. You can actually pull the fairing off. So if I want to ride without the fairing, I can take it off. But they're nice in certain times of the year, and if it's raining, they're really nice. But I'll take a picture of that and show you. It's funny because I've had this new fairing laying around for a while. I just never got around to putting it on. My old fairing, the windshield broke. Exactly the same mold for the fairing, you know, for the new one as the old one. But it would cost me more to buy the windshield than it would be to buy a whole new fairing. And this way I got to make that change to the mounting system. But now I still have another fairing that's laying around that I should try to find a windshield for sometime. But I got a lot of motorcycle parts laying around. Well, and then I got whole bikes I should be working on. But first thing is that Volkswagen, and then I'll get at this stuff. Well, I wasn't going to bring it up, but I have been watching that Arizona thing. It's such a mess. I don't. I have. I have so little faith in people anymore to behave honestly. You know, it just. You know, I watched when the county board of supervisors had their little meetings, and that was nothing but a bunch of bullshit where they're patting each other on the back saying, oh, how good of people they are. But they don't want to cooperate at all with the audit. You know, they just said, they just threw up their hand and said, no, we're not even going to talk to them. We don't want nothing to do with them. So when the Senate had their meeting, they wouldn't even come. Their feelings were hurt, so they weren't going to come. Which would be fine if they wouldn't interfere, but they constantly got to be interfering in any way that they can. You know, and that's just how those kind of people work. But that's a bunch. But they're plugging away at it. But then there is another audit going on where New Hampshire, that's a kind of a joke. I mean, there's, you know, I don't know how that's going to work out. They've got way too much involvement from, there again, I can't say the name of the company, but the company that actually owns the machines, they have people there. Well, you know, they're the problem in the first place. You don't need them fiddling in this stuff. But they're there. So that's like a show thing. I think really the idea there is that they're going to do a audit, which is really going to be nothing but a recount, like they always want to do, you know, count the same garbage that they counted before. And they're going to say, oh, we didn't find nothing. You know? But the idea of them doing that is so that they can try to discredit the one in Arizona. That's the only thing that's going on there. I don't think there's going to be any actual, you know, it's upsetting a lot of people, but I don't think they're going to get to the bottom of anything there. But there's a lot of people lined up, a lot of states lined up, they really want to get involved in this, but they're all kind of waiting on what goes down in Arizona, you know, to be the first domino to fall. But that's why the Democrats are pulling out all the stops, trying to discredit this one in Arizona. Because once that goes down, everybody's going to be clamoring, you know, and they're going to have a disaster on their hands. So we'll see how it shakes out. But my God, I have never seen such a... And there again, here comes, you know... Oh, I was going to give you a clue. If you really want to find out what's going on this audit stuff, like if you go on YouTube and if you type in AZ audit, you're going to get a whole list of garbage from like MSNBC, CBS. You know, it's all propaganda, all garbage. The only way you can make it work is if you, after you type in AZ audit, then go into the filters and filter it by the date. Filter it by in the last 24 hours. Then you'll find out what's actually going on. You're still going to get a lot of garbage from these propaganda specialists, but you will, in all likelihood, be able to find somebody there who actually has something to say. It's sad to see because, like I say, I look at them, and the YouTube is playing with the numbers on these people so bad. You know, like, you look at a video, it'll say there's like 16 views, but there's 32 likes on this video. You know, this doesn't make any sense. How they can, but YouTube does this, you know. And I just had a message from YouTube the other day again now, yesterday. They're changing their terms of service. You know, they feel they have the right to monetize, you know, like say, like the last video I did about these shoes. I didn't realize I had monetized it. You know, what's the point? It's like a 15-second video. It was just something I was putting out. But evidently I did monetize it. And I made like 33 cents or something on this video. But what YouTube wants to do now, what they're going to do, is even if you aren't monetizing videos, if you aren't part of their partner program, which is, I'm not a partner with them people, but even if you're not, if you're not a partner, they can still monetize their videos at their discretion, and you don't get any money from it. They keep all the money then. If you're actually monetizing it, well, then at least you get that little kickback. But I think the problem they were having, a lot of people, well, like my whole one channel, that Ghost channel, I don't monetize anything on that. Well, now they can start running ads on that, and I don't get any kickback from that. That's all for them. And my theory was I wasn't going to run ads on that because I just, the stuff I talk about there is something they weren't going to monetize anyway. But if they could do it and make a lot of money on it, yeah, they'll do it. So that's one of their little changes. But I think YouTube is kind of getting themselves in a bind. I think they're kind of feeling the hurt on some of the stuff on their money-making escapade. It isn't working out so well for them anymore. Because like I said, there's a lot of people that don't monetize, or a lot of them that can't monetize. They're demonetized, but they go ahead and making videos anyway. Well, now, if YouTube can run ads on theirs and not give them anything, well, that's the best of both worlds for them. So I think you're going to see that happen. So there could be ads turn up on the Ghost channel. I don't know. I never looked there, but like I say, I'm not going to get anything out of that. That's all for YouTube. Google is a greedy thing. And they just love to constantly changing and updating their terms of service. And it never makes it better. It always hurts you in some way. It always makes YouTube worse. It's not improving anything. It's always just making it a little worse and a little worse and a little worse to the point where, I honestly, I really have very little enthusiasm for YouTube. I don't watch much. Most of the people that I used to be subscribed to there's a lot of them that have just quit doing videos. Because I always tend to like the smaller channels, and the smaller channels can't survive in YouTube's environment. YouTube has no interest in them. Out of curiosity, then one day, I'm always switching phones. I've got like 4 phones and the tablet, all use the same SIM card. And I popped it into a phone that didn't have YouTube on it, because I have some of them set up differently, different uses for different phones. Well, I popped the SIM card in that one, and I went on to YouTube to see what the recommended, what the videos that they're pushing are. And that was just absolutely disgusting, really. I mean, it was, but it's their kind of thing, so, but saying of disgusting, I have, there's different websites you can get that you can watch television shows on, like a lot of the old classic shows or old movies and stuff that are free with ads, But accidentally, it might have been on that phone even, it had switched to a channel that was showing cartoons. I just turned this program on, and here was this cartoon, and I'm watching it. And this cartoon was made for kids, but wow, you kind of got to, if you got kids watching cartoons, you got to watch what your kids are watching. That was the creepiest thing I ever saw. It was, like this weird transgender, it was the weirdest thing I ever saw. But it was like transgender superheroes, or a of questionable gender. You have no idea what the hell they were supposed to be, but they were derailing a train that was carrying crates of pencils sent by the school board to a school, and here these pencils, they were trying to stop them because these pencils were flavored, in theory, flavored, the wood on the pencils was flavored menthol and mint. The idea being that these pencils then the kids would be so tempted to sit and chew on these pencils that they would score badly in their tests. Why? Why? I don't know. It was the weirdest thing I ever seen. I can't believe that somebody okayed this as a cartoon. I grew up with like Bullwinkle and stuff. This was not like Bullwinkle. This was weird, pushing some strange agenda. It was really freakish. I can't believe that was, but that's how the kids get to be the way the kids are. But it ain't the pencils that are making the kids dumb. It's just poor damn schools, poor damn teachers. Pushing an agenda rather than actually trying to educate these kids. But that was the freakiest thing I ever seen. And I guess, that must go on all the time. But boy, these channels that are made for kids. Even YouTube has their whole section of stuff that's for kids. I think you kind of got to look at that and see what the hell they're showing your kids. Because that wasn't good. That was not good at all.